Hey guys, welcome to another episode of El Jefe's Chop Shop. This week we're working on the Camry and we're going to finish up a few little things that I've been putting off. So it's now Monday, and on Friday I got home from the dyno, chucked the Camry on the hoist, checked everything over, and it looks pretty good. So I'm going to lower it down and we're going to do some stuff in the boot. I need to mount the amps and the stereo system. I need to finish off the battery in the boot, and I need to weld the seat conversion because they're pretty good and in the right spot. So let's get this thing on the ground and get into it. So here we are in the boot of the Camry. So a while ago I mounted this sub. It's nut-serted and bolted with like a bunch of 10 mils or M6 into the chassis rail. So that's not going anywhere, which is good. And then I've got the amps here, which are wired up horribly, and they're really well attached. One moment, they're very well attached, and they're good. So I need to make a mount for those, and I want to mount them up there between the speakers. So that's going to be quite tricky, but that's what I need to do, and then I'll rewire everything, make it all nice and neat, because this, whilst I've ignored it for a couple of months, that's not going to fly. And then I'd like to install this capacitor over that side somewhere, and that should hopefully make the stereo work a bit better, and also hopefully cut out some of the noise, because there's a fair bit of feedback at the moment, and when you rev it, everything whines. So we need to fix all of that. And then we need to fix the battery vents. So these are connected to the battery. These are supposed to go to the outside of the car, which they do not. But the battery side of things is done. So I need to actually remove pretty much all of that to get two fittings to get these out of the car, which on the hoist should be a whole lot easier than on the floor. So I might start there because I need to disconnect the battery anyway, and we'll just see how this develops. So I've ripped all of the battery stuff out, and now I need to put two holes in the floor for the battery vents. So what I'm planning on doing is probably drilling them about here somewhere, and they'll come over the front and down, and that way you can still get the lid off the battery tray and lay it over so you can get the battery in and out or disconnect it or whatever. Whereas if I put them over the back and down in there, it's very hard to get to, and then also you won't be able to take the lid off very easily. So I think about here somewhere, that's the chassis rail there. So I'll jack it up and see how far over I've got clearance, because I will have the exhaust right under here as well. So I'll see how it all looks. Let's get it up in the air. Conveniently, I already have the exhaust off, so we won't be drilling into the muffler regardless. So we're under the car here, and where I would like to drill through is right here where this exhaust shield is. So I'm not going to do that because there's going to be a muffler right there very soon. So I think where this hole is will be the go. So that's the, I think, tech screw that held the P-clamps in for the wiring. So I'll go back down and see how much room we actually have, or I could come down over here, I guess, right up the back of the panel. That way at least you've got a little bit of buffer with this tow bar bracket. Back down we go. So we're back in the boot. Here is the hole that I was talking about, and there's the other one that you could see. That's the chassis rail. And then if I go right up against the back, there's plenty of room here. And then at least the lid can come off, because the two drains or vents will be coming over this way. So it's about as good as it gets, I think. So I'll grab the drill and put two little holes here, and then jack it up and make sure they're in the right spot. This is going to be a lot of up and down today. So I've drilled two holes here. They clear everything nicely. I went through the bin of fittings, found two little alley cheap fittings. So I'm going to chuck these in the lathe. I'm going to turn this down and put a different thread on it so I can put a nut on the back of it. Then these can poke through the floor, get bolted to the floor, and then the breathers can get plumbed up to there. So I'll head over to the lathe and get into it. So funny story about the lathe. The last video I did on the lathe, I think, was the strut tower one, or strut brace video. And I intentionally did some stuff in that video that were a bit not correct, because I knew that Aiden would watch it, and I knew that he would annoy the hell out of him because he is a professional machinist. So he rang me and he's like, "Oi, stop using your lathe. I'm coming over and I'm going to give you a lesson." So he's taught me a bunch of stuff. We've locked out a few things, worked out that this is the actual feed, and that's the screw feed, that's the power feed. And you can change reverse actions and all sorts. So I've had a lesson. Let's hope this is a bit better. So they ended up being 14 by 1.5. They're threaded okay. And then we've got a decent sized washer to go on there. And then the whole lot can go into the boot like that. Same with that. So that's what we're working with, and I will have to clean all this up obviously, and then I'll jump underneath and I can put a nut on the bottom, and we've got some nice breathers. So let's chuck it in the air and clean up this surface, because there's a lot of sound deadener or body deadener or whatever it's called in there, seam sealer. Clean all that up and then we can put the nut on. So I got a little bit distracted, but they're bolted in and they are sealed. So I used just like gasket maker, sealed those to the outside of the car, and then I've punched 2 holes in the carpet which line up nicely. So now we can put the hose over the top and then put the clamp on from the top, and it will hold all the carpet down nicely. It's going to be really hard to get the spare tire out, but hopefully that's never a problem. So I can put all this back together now, and then we'll work on mounting the capacitor for the stereo. So I lied and I'm not putting the battery back in because I need to paint the bracket. I'm going to mount the capacitor, so I've made this little bracket as well. It's got a little dog leg in either end just to space it away a little tiny bit. It's going to go on the back of here, and then we're going to do the hose clamps up around it, and that'll hold it. So this needs to get mounted in the car. I've just realized I need to dog leg that a little bit more because they're going to have the bolt head just here. But that'll bolt into the boot, which I'll show you in a sec. Okay, that was pretty miserable to get that mounted in there, but you can see the mount there. Just a couple of 10mm bolts bolted through, nuts on the back, which is super awkward, but once they're tight, they're going to be done. And I've got a second set of nuts to throw on there to lock it all together. 2 hose clamps, just very quickly held on. I'll put some little rubber in there or something to make it not chafe. And then I've had to lower it down a fair bit so that the boot hinge can actually clear. So now I'll take that all apart, paint the battery tray, and then they can go back in, and I can move on to this, I guess. I'd just like to interrupt this video to let you guys know the merch store is finally up and proper. We have all of the stuff. We have air fresheners with the K10 on it. We have lanyards, plenty. We have so many lanyards with the original El Jefe's Chop Shop logo. We have hoodies like this one. We have a few different Corolla shirts, and we have the basic t-shirt as well, in long and short sleeve. And if you're a sticker guy, there's a bunch of different options. So head over to the merch store in the description and grab yourself something cool. Let's get back to the video. So I've skipped forwards in time a little bit. The bracket is painted, bolted, a little bit of rubber on the bracket. So you can see that right in there. There's a little bit of tube that I put a slice in, and then I have hose clamped it and it's nice and stiff. So now I need to put the battery box back in and then try and run wires to this and hide or clean up all of this stuff. Boy, that sure was frustrating. So got the battery box all back together, got the capacitor in place. I haven't wired it up yet. More so for my own future reference, the battery is disconnected. We got the 2 vents here coming down into the 2 fittings that we put in the floor. I need to get some hose clamps for there. They're off yonder. So now what I need to do is somehow connect from here, which is the stereo feed, up to the capacitor, and then I can go probably just tee off the capacitor, to be honest, and go back to the stereo. So I'll work that out. Then tomorrow or later this evening I'll come out and try and mount these amps. So I've gotten everything mounted, and I've just run the power cord out of this guy up to the capacitor, and I'm going to run from the capacitor, just like jumped off of that terminal, up to the amps, which is going to be up here shortly. So I need to run a earth from there to an earth point, which I'll probably just run to the back of the battery because it is actually pretty close, and then that'll do with this corner. These are all bolted in and clamped in, so that's all good. A few zip ties will make it look nice, but that's the main hurdle. But I've got to go out for now, so I'll be back in just a moment. So I've moved on to the amp mounts, so I've quickly bent up a few little brackets, drilled some holes and painted them. So I'll come back out in the morning and bolt all this stuff to the amps and then see how it fits into the boot and onto the parcel shelf. So it's a new morning and the brackets are all dry. Unfortunately, they didn't install themselves into the car. So I've just opened the back doors, laid the seat down. Now I can get in there and see how this is going to line up. So after laying in the boot for a couple of hours yesterday, I felt pretty horrible. So I went inside and I didn't make it back outside. So, new day. Let's finish this off. So what you have seen is that I got the rear of the amps mounted, and now I need to get the front of the amps mounted. Everything's wide except for the heavy gauge stuff, like the big thick boys. So I need to wire up the thick stuff and make those front mounts. Let's get into it and get this job out of the way. But just for reference, coming in through the back seat, you can see it's all wired up and just sort of hanging there. So this will get mounted, I can't even reach it, up. And then it should bolt to the parcel shelf and be happy. It's hanging a lot lower than I thought it was going to, and I should probably fix that, but it doesn't really matter. It's just off the ground. That's all that really matters to me. So to get these heavy gauge wires all finished up, I need to get some T-blocks or splitters or whatever you call them. So I have 2 of these from many years ago. I should mention that all of this stereo stuff is from years and years ago, and that's why it's going in the Camry, because it has been living on the shelf for too long and it needs to go somewhere. I'm not a huge bass head or anything, I just have it. So I have 2 of these, but I have lost the covers that stop it from arcing out and everything. So what I did is went to J-Car this morning. These are $40 each, and I don't really want to buy 2 more. Project boxes, on the other hand, are like $8 each. So that fits in there. And if I drill a couple of holes, we can get the cables in and out, and then we're good to go. I just have to mount these somewhere. So I'll work that out, and we'll be back in just a second, ready to wire it up. That's also why this T-junction block is wrapped in a cloth and tape, because I didn't want it to arc out on anything. So I'll unwrap that, get the other one, and then we can work this out. So quick modification with the Dremel. Now they all fit together. So I've obviously got one cable missing off of these ones, which is the main power and the main earth. But first of all, I want to work out where I can mount these and they will reach, because I don't want to redo those crimps if I can avoid it. Then I have to finish the mount of the amp up the front. So I'll get under here again, lay underneath everything and struggle for the next hour. I'll put you on time lapse so you don't miss that. I wouldn't want you to miss me struggling. So as expected, that was pretty miserable. So what I've done is hooked up the power and ground into those 2 boxes, one there, and then the earth comes out the top and then across, and then the power comes out and across. So they both run over this way, and then I need to hide them behind that carpet, which I'll have to do in a minute. And then they're all screwed up, everything's all wired. So now the only thing left to do for these amps is to glue those front 2 mounts and then hide those wires. But I'm going to run both of them to the capacitor just because it's convenient, and then I'll run from the capacitor back down to the earth for the battery, and then everything is connected to the battery, to the capacitor, everything's connected to everything, and we shouldn't have any issues. So I'm going to run off for a little bit and I'll come back and finish that off this afternoon. So I'm back, and this is the piece of flat bar I'm going to turn into a pair of amp mounts. Let's work it out. So the miserable task has been achieved. We've got 2 brackets holding the amps up. We've got all the wires sorted out. Everything runs to the capacitor. So now I just need to run 1 more earth from the capacitor to the battery. Done. This has been quite the task, and laying upside down and doing all that sort of stuff's been a pain in the bum. So we'll make one more cable and then we're pretty much done. So super happy about that. Hopefully this doesn't rub or rattle because it is touching the speakers. So hopefully that's hard up against there enough that it doesn't rattle. But this could have been a little bit higher, but it's just going to have to do. And the wiring is not the nicest, but you can't really see it unless you're on a stupid angle because this car is a few feet off the ground. So you won't even really see the amps when it is on the ground. It does give me a little less clearance, but I think my tool bag will slide under there and that's all that really matters. So I'll clean up all of this stuff, make that earth, and we'll be done in just a moment. Main earth from the capacitor to the battery. Brown one goes to the earths on the amps. Positive from the battery to the capacitor, and then from the capacitor to the amps. They run speakers and sub. Done. Just need to vacuum the boot, which I'll do later. And we're all set. So all the vents are done. Actually, I should probably grab some zip ties and make those look nice. Okay, 3 zip ties. Now we're done. Let's shut this boot and do something else. So with those seat brackets welded, I went to do the front and realized I can't open the front doors on the hoist. So that's gonna have to wait until this thing comes off the hoist, which will be a couple of weeks because there's some other stuff in the works. So once all that's done, I'll pull the seats out, get them welded and painted properly. But that's as far as we can go for now because I can't even get the seats out while it's on the hoist. So that'll do for this week. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed and we'll see you next week.